All right, everybody, welcome back to Hodash Hockey. It is opening night tonight, and I'm making my preseason kind of video, just talking about the offseason, talking about the future for this season. First thing I want to say is I have not been this excited for the start of a season in quite a while. As fun as the last couple of years have been with, all the young players and things to watch and seeing who kind of breaks out, who starts hitting their stride. I don't think that I've really felt the belief that I have in this team that I do at this moment. We'll get into kind of the off season, the preseason. Obviously, I haven't made a video in quite a while just because the Kings really had a very quiet off season. They had the Kevin Fiala signing, and then from that point on, it was pretty much no big news. The draft went okay. No first round pick, no really big picks. That are kind of changing the team in the next few seasons. This season now, it is all about winning and just being a really competitive, true NHL team. There's no cloudiness of the fact that we're still rebuilding or that our players are too young. This is a legitimate team. They showed it last year in the playoffs with taking Edmonton to 7 games in the first round. And then honestly, this preseason, I feel like answered a lot of the questions that the Kings had coming into it. So let's talk about the preseason and what questions, in my opinion, I feel like have somewhat been answered from it. So obviously preseason is preseason. You don't want to take too much stock into what happened. Looking at the results, Kings went 3-4. Although I'm putting an asterisk on that Vegas game because it should have been a tie game with the goal that happened and then somehow not having video review. But again, that's just a preseason thing, right? It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But like I said, it answered a lot of questions for me. And the first one, I think one of the bigger ones that for me, just as someone who's, been a Kempe fan for so long, I've defended him for so long in this fandom. The immediate talk after Kempe's breakout season last year was, well, there's no way he's going to score 35 goals again. He's going to regress. Hopefully the team can, pick up the slack that he's not going to have. Kempe looked great in the preseason. Playing with Kopi, playing especially with Kevin Fiala, I really truly believe that Kempe is going to have another monster season. I would say points-wise especially, definitely way better than he did last year. I think the addition of Kevin Fiala, especially on the power play, which again is another talking point from last season, the power play in the preseason looked great. And it's because Kevin Fiala is just a dynamic player. He's something that the Kings have not had on the power play and even in general 5-on-5 hockey. The biggest problem with the power play last season was that you had 5 guys passing the puck around and not really doing anything with it. They were just kind of hoping that they could hit that cross ice pass and someone's going to get an open one-time shot, and that was the only way that they could score. With Fiala playing on that group now, he moves the puck when he's in the offensive zone. He doesn't just get a pass and stay stationary. He's always moving, and that's what you need in an NHL power play situation. You need to get those defenders out of their spots because it's the NHL. They know where to be. They know exactly what the scouting report is. They're going to be in the right spots. You need to move the puck, not just with your stick, but with your feet. And Kevin Fiala was doing that early on. I think that he's really going to pair up more so with Kempe to kind of both help elevate their games. I think Kempe is going to get a lot more assists this season because Fiala is just a great player. He can put the puck in the net, but I also think he's going to score just as many, if not more, goals that he did last year because he's going to be open more, right? Kevin Fiala is going to take away a lot of the pressure in the offensive zone that the defense is going to give. And, especially with having Kopi as well, that is a 3-headed monster that the defense has to deal with. And the fact that Kopi is so good at puck protection, he's so good at making that quick little pass, I feel like a lot of the goals that are going to be scored by that top line are going to be Kopi doing Kopi things, working down low on the boards, getting the puck out, finding Kevin Fiala. What I want to see from him is just go to the net because it's going to be one of those basketball type of plays where he will hopefully draw defenders in, and then he'll have that option of either taking the shot if he's in a good angle and he thinks he can beat the goalie, or hopefully that defender that's collapsing in to take care of him was on Kempe's, one-time position, and Fiala has the skill, has the vision, the senses to get that puck over to Kempe in a good spot. Kempe's shot is just, it's hitting a new level. I mean, last year was really good. This year so far in the preseason, it's been very good. He's got one of the better shots in the NHL, and I just think with Kopi and Fiala both being able to really create offense in a way that Kempe's never really had with him, I just think all three guys really complement each other so much, and that's just a huge factor in how this team is going to get better. Defensively, they're solid. The structure that they have, the system that Todd McLellan uses, you really can't ask for much more. It's offensively that they need to improve. And Kevin Fiala, it's not just adding one player who scored 80 plus points. You're adding a player that can really benefit both Kopi and Kempe and really just, I think, get that line to an elite, true top line level in the NHL. I would not be surprised if that's a top 10 line in the league this year scoring wise, because it's just such a dynamic group and they all really benefit each other. The next question that I feel like it answered is Arthur Calliev and to an extent Quinton Byfield, Gabe Velardi, all these young guys, but I'm focusing on Arthur Calliev because Calliev was by far the best player on the team in preseason, and he's, I think, along with Quinton Byfield, if this team wants to hit another level this season, he really has to elevate his game. We've seen how good of a player he is and how much skill he possesses in his shooting abilities, but the work that he put in last year to get better defensively, to get stronger, better in puck battles, it was clearly showing off in the preseason. And I really think if he doesn't kind of hit a wall 50, 60 games into the year, and if he can keep his fitness level to the point where he can play an 82 game season plus go into the playoffs at 100%, he's 25 goals is not out of the question at all. He is such a dynamic player. I think he'll get more chances on the power play or higher up in the lineup. Right now, he'll probably be slotted lower, but he just really showed that a full offseason after, his first real true NHL season, he looks better than ever. And if he can continue to improve, which I don't have any doubts on because he made so many strides last year that this next season, he's going to keep working hard. He's just that type of person. And he's really going to be a special player that we've been waiting for. And unfortunately for Calliev, one of the reasons that he isn't going to get as much top six time is because another big question was answered in the preseason, and that was, when is Arvidsson going to come back? A lot of the talk in the off season was that it was going to be a couple weeks, couple months even before Arvidsson gets back from his back injury. But in the last preseason game, he started the game, played, didn't look too great, but for his first game back in quite a long time, it's a great sign for the Kings. And the fact that he's going to slot right into that second line that was so dominant last year, it just really takes a lot of the guessing and kind of hoping that someone can step up and fill in for him for a little bit. The fact that the two top lines are going to be fully set come opening night is a huge bonus for the Kings. And if they can get the ball rolling early, it's going to put the Kings in a position where they're not constantly having to fight to stay in that third spot in the Pacific or a wild card spot. They need to get wins early this season, and the fact that this group is pretty much 100% healthy is a huge part of it. So looking at the rest of the team, another big question mark that seems to be answered so far is Brant Clark. Now, unfortunately, Brant Clark is in one of those weird situations where he really can only play in the NHL or the OHL. He cannot be sent to Ontario to play in the minors. So it puts him in a tricky situation because I don't know if he's 100% NHL ready, but he's also clearly too good to be playing in the OHL. So it looks like the Kings are going to stick with him for the opening night roster. I assume that he'll play his 9 preseason games and then get sent back to the OHL and finish off the year there, unless he does some crazy stuff, because in the preseason, he looked very good. I think the potential is clearly insane from him, especially offensively. Not so much the plays that he was making, which he was making a lot of plays, but the plays that he was seeing and the passes that he was attempting and the positioning that he had, it's elite offensive defenseman, hockey IQ. It's gonna take some time for him to be able to actually capitalize on the IQ and vision that he has. But once he does, he is going to be a special player. I mean, defensively, clearly there's things to iron out, but you can say that about pretty much every defenseman who's under the age of 22, and he's only 19, so he's got time to work on it. But I was very blown away by the play he had. Obviously there's a lot of talk about how he doesn't get called for the Team Canada at World Juniors, and he kind of we just haven't seen him. We haven't seen him play with the big team against other NHL players. And while I don't think he, kind of nailed on his position on the team and said, yes, I'm ready to play at this level, he definitely showed that he's a lot closer than a lot of people thought. So I talked about the top line. The second line, I think, is hopefully going to have just as good of a season that they did last year. Now, Philip Deneau's kind of in the same camp that Kempe is, where people are kind of already questioning, oh, is he going to do what he did last year? But in my opinion, the fact that the top line got even better with the addition of Kevin Fiala, I think it really benefits that second line as well, because I see a lot of shifts where the first line is going to really hem down that defensive team. They'll have a full minute 20 shift and cycling the puck around, wearing them down. And then, especially think about a second period with the short change. All of a sudden you pop in Trevor Moore, Philip Deneau, Victor Arvidsson, probably one of the hardest working lines in hockey. It's just unfair. It's going to be unfair for a lot of teams. If those two lines can really build off of each other and carry the momentum shift after shift, like I said earlier, this is a top six that is a playoff top six. It's a top six that can compete with, let's say, the Oilers last year, right? Like losing in 7 games to the Oilers without Drew Doughty and Victor Arvidsson. Having those guys back, plus adding a Kevin Fiala, this is a legitimate team. Like, this is why I'm so excited, because this team has the pieces now. I don't know if all of them are fully at the level, right? I'm thinking more of like a Quinton Byfield. Unfortunately for Quinton Byfield, he couldn't play in as many preseason games as he wanted to because he got sick for a little bit. But it's getting to the point now where it kind of is just revolving on how can Quinn Byfield progress. If he can do what Arthur Calliev did last year, and if he can really just turn into a solid third line center, obviously with a great potential going forward, but if he can play at that level this season, this team is definitely going to be a contender. And the other factor on his line is Alex Iafallo. So I'm still a big believer in Alex Iafallo. I know he had a tough year last year. He had that very long drought where he wasn't scoring and wasn't really getting points either. But you just have to factor in that that's probably not going to happen this year. And, if Iafallo doesn't have that 20-game goalless streak, he probably puts up, 25 goals last year, which is very serviceable for the type of player that Alex Iafallo is. Clearly, he adds so much more to the game than just scoring and points. But if he can really be that veteran presence on a young third line that, by the way, is probably going to include Gabriel Velardi after a monster preseason from him, I just think these are the kind of players that if he's playing with, he can elevate them. And I think that youth and the skill level of the guys that are going to be around him will hopefully elevate him back up to being a 20-plus goal scorer player. Talking about Velardi, I'll be honest, I did not expect Velardi to be on this roster come opening night because, it's been a long time for him. And I understand the injuries that he's had to go through. He's had to work really hard. But I give him a lot of credit because one of the things I had against him was attitude. I just felt like Velardi, didn't work as hard as he needed to. I think at some points he thought maybe his skill level was good enough to where he should be given opportunities instead of earning the opportunities. But fair play to him because this preseason he got an opportunity and he ran with it. He looked so good on the puck, and then especially just the plays that he was making. The results were coming for him, but it wasn't just luck and it wasn't just lucky bounces and kind of bad defense or playing against worse competition. He really was making the right plays. He was in the right spot every time. He's had so much potential for so long. I feel like there's a lot of fans that are like me, who have kind of had to temper their expectations on him because, he was drafted 5 years ago. But this year, the way that he started off this training camp and the preseason, he looks motivated. He's doing the right things, and I fully think that he will take this opportunity and continue to do well. I think the confidence is there again for him. I think the pressure is off for him, which is a big thing. And that's another thing that I think fans maybe don't value as much as I do, is the fact that we have so many players that could be playing on this team right now. Like I mentioned, Jordan Spence going down to the minors. Rasmus Kupari, another guy who, probably was supposed to be making the team this year, but he's now back in the minors. Elias Anderson, he went through waivers. He's back in the minors. We have so many guys who, if needed, will be called up and will do a serviceable job, which when you look at last year, that was the biggest reason that we were able to survive all the injuries. When you lose your entire blue line and you can still put together a group that can win you games and get you into the playoffs, that's a huge bonus. So as tough as it is to see guys who, probably should be playing in the NHL, like a Jordan Spence, not get that opportunity right away, you have to leverage it with the fact that if for any chance there is an injury to, let's say an Alex Edler, or, let's say Sean Walker, hasn't rebounded from the ACL as well as we wanted him to, we have enough guys that we can bring them in and not lose any skill on this team. We'll still remain realistically the same team that we were because, now we've kind of become a top heavy team, but the depth that we have is super important, especially looking at the last couple Stanley Cup teams. What do they all have in common? Colorado, insane depth. Tampa Bay, insane depth. Depth is what wins you championships in this league. And this year, I don't know if our depth is, kind of at the level of a Colorado or a Tampa Bay. But the fact that we have so many guys that are continuing to develop in the minors, that are continuing to get chances in the NHL and have more potential to grow, for me, it just says that I feel like this year is the start of like a 5-year window where this team could win 2 cups in 3 years again. Not this year, I would say, but next year, throughout the next 4 seasons, this team is legitimately going to be scary. So that leaves us to the last question mark. And unfortunately, it's a question that did not get answered in the preseason, or at least we didn't get the answer that we wanted. And that's goaltending. When I look at this team, the only real negative is the goaltending. If the goaltending's not there, this team isn't as good as they probably should be. And while I have all the trust in the world in Jonathan Quick, Cal Peterson, this was supposed to be his year. Last year was supposed to be his year. But he's just not hitting the level that we need him to be, and especially the level that he's being paid at now. His $5 million contract starts this year, and he's just not a $5 million goalie. And while we can kind of get away with it right now, if it continues to be like this, it's going to put this team in a really tough spot. Ideally, he would be a 1A, 1B with Jonathan Quick, but I just haven't seen it. And I feel like Cal Peterson is the type of goalie that if he's given number 1 game time and he's playing every night, he probably does a lot better than he is right now. The problem is he just hasn't shown that he deserves that. He hasn't built the trust up with the coaches, the fans, anybody, that he should be playing regularly and he should be starting the majority of the games and be able to build up his confidence and get more comfortable in the crease. There really is no, easy answer, because you either take the gamble when, he really hasn't proven that he deserves it, or you don't give him that opportunity and, we kind of are stuck with the Cal Peterson we have right now. So that's where we're at. That is kind of covering the preseason. Gave my thoughts on, where I think this team is right now. I'm super excited for this season to get started. Get started at home tonight against Vegas, and then Seattle on Thursday. And then it's like pretty long road trip, which, you know, a lot of people say is a good thing, right? It means that you get to bond with your teammates on the road. You know, I feel like this team is very similar to the team last year. You know, the only real addition is Kevin Fiala, so chemistry should be good. But it's important that this team starts out hot. You know, last year, 1-5-1 in the first 7 games. You know, it put us in a tough spot. We had to kind of climb our way up. You know, especially going with all the injuries that happened early on the season. You know, I don't want the team to be in that spot this season. I want them to just win games early. You know, win games early, play at the level that they were playing, you know, for the majority of last year. And you know, if they can do that and avoid any big skids, you know, top 3 in the Pacific is definitely doable. It's going to be tough with Calgary being really good. Edmonton's obviously a very scary team with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. We've seen how good they are. And then even the other teams, right? Vegas, you have to assume that they're going to get a little bit better than they were last year. Even Vancouver, I think, will be better than they were last year. You know, I still think that the Pacific is probably one of the weaker divisions, and it's one of the easier divisions to get a playoff spot in. But the Kings cannot get complacent. And, you know, it's at the time of the season now where it is up to the players. The front office has been doing such a good job every year of just making this team better and better and better. Todd McLellan, you know, I know some people don't like him, some people do. In my opinion, he's a great coach. You know, you don't get to the playoffs with a team that was so injured last season and take one of the best teams in the league to Game 7 if your coaching is not good enough. You know, the strategy, the systems that he was using, the team bought in, and it worked. You know, the Kings did not score a lot of goals last year, and they were still able to make the playoffs. That usually doesn't happen, but the defense is what got us there. The front office has added offensive power. They've drafted a lot of players who are getting better and better. It becomes up to the players now because, you know, they've been learning from McLellan all offseason, all preseason. It's time to just, you know, put your money where your mouth is. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm glad to be back. I'm so glad the Kings hockey is back because it is rough in the summer when you just don't have games to look forward to. You know, it's one of my favorite things in life is watching Kings hockey and following this team. And I'm just grateful it's back. I'm grateful that you guys are here to, you know, to watch this with me, especially with the off season and not having Kings hockey. I've just started realizing how important it is to just enjoy the games, enjoy watching these players play the game we love for the team we love. And, you know, every game means something, you know, just even as a fan watching it. You know, it's so fun to look back, and it's fun to look forward, but I'm just excited to kind of live in the moment and watch this team grow in real time. And I hope you guys do too. I hope you guys do it with me. I think there's a lot of good that's going on with this team right now, and it's going to be a fun time to watch. So if you like this video, please give it a like. Comment down, you know, what you kind of think for the Kings this year. I think, you know, most fans should be kind of aiming towards playoffs for this team, but I don't know, maybe a little bit more pessimistic, maybe you're really optimistic. I would love to personally see the Kings win a playoff series. They have not won a playoff series in, I think, since they won the Stanley Cup, if I'm not mistaken. So it's time. And honestly, this is the group to do it.